Hi, I'm Louis.
Hi, I'm Cherie.
We want to share with you our story of loss, grief, and how we're navigating through this new life together.
We want to encourage and provide hope to you as you travel through your grief journey.
Let's go. When we started talking about our grief journey, we both realized that there were differences.
However, we also realized that there were a lot of similarities.
Yep. This allowed us to be able to relate to each other. I hated to be broken, and I'm a fixer. So because of that, I needed to look for ways to heal right away. Now I knew that Yami was going to pass away. It wasn't sudden.
Right.
She had been sick for some time. And so because of that, I had already kind of started thinking about what my grief was going to be like. I mean, I didn't know what it was going to be like, but I knew that there was going to be some kind of grief and kind of my heart and my mind was preparing for those things.
Right. And for me, Jerry passed away somewhat suddenly, and I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I just was at a loss.
Yeah. And as a guy, we tend to do things on our own, want to do it on our own.
Yes. And as women, we know that we need other people. We reach out to family, we reach out to friends, we reach out to almost anybody that will listen.
Yeah. As guys, we tend to hide our emotions, keep it to ourselves, maybe do all the crying behind the scenes,
And I think for women, we weren't taught like men were taught to hold their emotions and not to cry. We weren't taught that. We let our emotions out. We cry. We express anything that we're feeling.
Yeah. We also tend to compartmentalize the guys, and we do that with almost anything, but for the most part, we compartmentalize, and so I think we put our grief. I got things to do, so I need to put my grief on the shelf for a minute here because I got these other things, and so it's kind of just a thing that guys do.
Right. I think for women, we know that there's a lot to do, and so we don't think about just one thing. We think about the whole picture, like this needs to be done, this, and it overwhelms us. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Now there are similarities. For example, in our experience in the conversations that we've had, one of the similarities is that we break down. That we have random breakdowns. The least expected place.
Yeah.
Like I said, we may hide our emotions, but there's sometimes where it just like comes out of nowhere.
Exactly.
So,
you remember a time that?
I remember being with, talking to a couple and just kind of talking through things. I wasn't even explaining to them what I had gone through, but just in talking to them and bringing up Yami and having to change, some of the lifestyle that I was gonna, my new life, my new life was gonna be. Out of nowhere, I just like stopped, gulped, and ended up on my friend's shoulder.
Yeah.
On his shoulders, crying.
Yeah, I can remember being in the grocery store and trying to get some shopping done, and just having a complete I gotta hurry up and get out of here because I knew it was coming. So I had to leave. I don't think I made it to the register. I was just left the stuff and was out the door. So.
You also, remember you shared a story about being in church one time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, I saw a video of you in church one time.
So I was in church, and I had gone for, I had gone for, I don't know what happened. Just all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, I just broke down. And, women were around me, just, trying to encourage me.
Yeah, I could see and seeing the video. I could see the pain or feel the pain.
Yeah.
That you were going through, and I'm like, oh man, it's just I get chills in the back of my spine just seeing that because it's so intense.
Yeah, I think that was the same month of him passing actually. That I had went to New York to a church in New York, and that happened there. Another thing is being in a fog, not knowing what's actually going on. You're kind of on an autopilot of functioning, Yeah.
It's kind of like obviously your body is, and you are in a state of shock. You know, even though for me it wasn't sudden, I was still in some kind of state of shock. There was still a fog of what's going to happen, because we don't know what the future holds.
Right.
You know, and we don't realize how much our life changed at that point.
Right.
Until even here we are a couple of years later.
Exactly.
Looking back to those times where there was so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
I think also there is a lot of immediate guilt about things.
Definitely.
You know, whether it's what did we do? Could we have done something different? We shouldn't have moved to Lakeland, or we shouldn't have gone to this hospital, or we should have talked to this doctor, or she would have gotten a second, at least for me in terms of the medical part.
Right.
You know, or even, you know, something that was said that was never cleared out.
Right.
Although I didn't go through that, but I know people have gone through that.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing is depression. You know, I think when you lose someone close, when people don't like the word depression, you know, but you know, there's levels of depression, and I think everyone goes through a form of depression when you lose someone, especially someone of that amount of time.
So how do you think people express that depression or manifest that depression?
Well, some people will, you know, they can maybe, I'm going to use one thing with me. I had a choice to make. I had a choice to make as far as was I going to get up or not get up? Some people will just stay in the bed and not move. You can't function. It's not because you don't want to, but sometimes you just can't. For me, I knew that I had to. My girls were adults technically, 19 and 23 at the time, but I knew that I still had to pay bills and I still had to go on. And so that may have been part of the motivation that kept me going. But depression can come in many forms. So one is where you can, you know, crawl in a ball in a corner and not want to do anything. Right. You can isolate. You can. There's a lot of different forms or ways that depression can show itself.
And we don't even realize that we're in a depressed state. It's you know, a lot of times because we're so depressed, we don't realize that we're depressed.
Exactly.
Crazy. I think also feeling alone, because you were that person every day. For the most part. And then all of a sudden that person is not there. Exactly. So who do you have your conversations with? You know, the person that you know, me talking to Yami, she was sick for 6 months before she passed away. Right. And there were conversations that I wanted to have with her that I couldn't, because, you know, in her mental state for the last, you know, her last 6 months was not what it was. Right. And so you couldn't have, and I think I was already feeling alone even before.
Exactly. I remember, you know, in one of the grief groups talking about someone said they felt lonely. And I was like, I don't feel lonely. I feel alone. And for me, it was a difference. It's like lonely how they were expressing it, as if they wanted someone to be with them. Okay. I didn't feel like I wanted someone to be with me. I wanted Jerry. Right. And so that was what I was saying, was I feel alone. I didn't have my person of 26 years anymore. So it wasn't, for me, it was just different. Yeah. When they said it was different.
Okay. Yeah. Any other similarities, I guess, that we can?
Maybe the what ifs. Like, what if I would have done this differently? What if, you know, there's a whole bunch of questions as far as, you know, what ifs.
Okay. It almost goes hand in hand with the whole guilt thing.
Yes, exactly.
So what could we have done differently? Yeah, and there's many more. There's a lot of different similarities, and I guess those things will come up as we chat. How things are similar, and even how things have been different. You know, now in terms of my experience, when my grief journey started, the very first thing that I did when Yami passed away, and it was intentional. It wasn't intentional until that point. When she passed away, I took my wedding ring off. And it was...
So it wasn't planned?
No, but it was for whatever reason. It just, at that point, I'm like, I just realized I'm not married anymore. You know, the Bible says, until death do you part. And I'm like, well, I'm not married anymore, so I'm taking my ring off. And it wasn't because I'm going to go find somebody else. It was just because I'm not married anymore. So.
Okay. I know for me, it took me probably about a little bit over 2 years for me to take the ring off. I'm still trying to, figure out why it took me 2 years. I knew that I wasn't married. I knew it meant, till death do us part. So I knew technically I wasn't married. But I think the ring itself gave me a sense of comfort, And it may have been, for years, I was married for 26 years. And so my identity was in being married, And so although I wasn't no longer married, I think you said it good about the heart catching.
Your heart has to catch up to what your head already knows.
Definitely.
They're gone. They've passed away, but we still feel married.
Right.
And so we still act married.
Right.
You still operate as a married person.
Right.
You keep the ring on. Maybe some people may keep the ring on because they want to stay in that maybe they don't want to move forward, and just be where they are.
Like I said, so I don't know why it took me so long, but at any case, I do know people that never take the ring off. Those are the people that don't want to move as far as in a relationship, but I don't know. For me,
yeah. So that was interesting that we were able to that we had different mindsets when it comes to our wedding ring.
Yeah.
Now another part of my experience, when Yami passed away, was because I'm a fixer, because I hated being broken, because I just hated the feeling of the pain. Like, I have to heal. I need to fix this.
Right.
I'm a fixer. I need to fix this. And so I knew that there was grief share. And so I was able to eventually get to grief share, start with the grief share group. Grief share has a workbook that you go through on a daily. You have your meetings that you share with people. And as a guy, I talked about, we had our emotions, but I don't have a problem with sharing the pain that I went through. I think for me, it was good to share those things. And maybe even share stories,
right?
Things like that. But I was very religious about doing grief share and doing the homework and doing the schoolwork, I guess, for lack of a better word, and doing all those things that I recommended, and I learned a lot. And I think that helped me to move forward and be able to grieve in a healthy way.
Okay. For me, I knew as a counselor that I needed help. I knew that I needed to reach out to someone, whether it be groups. So I actually found a group here in Lakeland, Cornerstone. They provided grief counseling, well, not grief counseling, but grief support group. And then also I was a part of an organization called Premature Widows that is based in the DC area. And because of those groups and being able to express myself the way, whatever was bothering me, whatever was weighing on me, without any guilt, without any judgment, without any shame of crying or breaking down, and being able to have other people who understood what I was going through. That was important for me to do. So I continued to go to those groups. Which kind of leads me into how we shared our emotions. In my experience, the way I did it, I was talking about how guys hide their emotions. I'm not one to just cry, right,
on command or on demand. But I do know that my release, the way I felt better on a regular basis, was talking about Yami and telling stories and reminiscing and things like that. I wasn't, I didn't go into the room and cry.
Right.
I didn't sit with people and cry. I just told stories. That's how I felt better afterwards. I love talking about her and talking about her crazy things and how, she just did this, did that, and what was funny, what wasn't funny.
Right.
And so that was a release for me.
For me, the release was talking about the pain. It was painful to talk about the good times. It was painful to talk about, while he was sick, it was painful. All of it was painful. And so just talking about my pain is what helped me. It was like a heavy load being lifted when I talked about it, because, like I said, I cried, and crying for me was like a weight being lifted off of me.
So how do you think, or what would you say, how did Jerry's passing change you?
I think the one of the biggest things is that I had like an I don't care attitude. Not like I don't care about anything, but almost like, like the small things didn't matter. I didn't have a sense of fear, anymore. I can remember going to an escape room, and me and the girls went to an escape room, and it was supposed to be like scary, and you got to do all this stuff, and then something jumped up like out, and everybody else like screamed, and the guy came in like afterwards, and he was like, when that thing jumped out, you was like, let's go, and I just had this sense of, nothing can bother me, so come on, bring it on, and just the other day when we were doing some yard work at my house, and I went on top of the roof. I remember going on top of the roof after Jerry had passed, and I had no fear of being on top of that roof. And this time, I was hearing cracks and whatnot, and I was like, oh. And while I'm up there, I'm like, girl, you were up here just like, 7 years ago, but still, I didn't have any fears then. Like, I'm just, let's go, got to get things done. And now I had a different, attitude on life, and I think you talked about something like that.
I had a I don't care attitude. When Yami passed away, it was like nothing mattered anymore, in the sense that if I'm crossing the street and a bus runs me over, whoop you do, big deal,
Right.
Come on. That doesn't mean that I was like suicidal or anything like that, but it was that kind of, I guess, that fearless mindset that, nothing scares me anymore, nothing bothers me, nothing could bother me as much as that, and so I don't care. There's a certain kind of fear that doesn't happen at that point, because
the worst thing had already happened.
Exactly. So that's a good, I think everybody gets changed. Everybody that changes that way has that a little bit. Yeah. I know also for me, for us, we've talked about this before, is that our faith was challenged. When Yami passed away, I knew that I had to practice what I preached, when I used to teach the youth group back in the day, and tell them, hey, praise God in the good and the bad and the ugly, because he's still God. And when the Bible says this, and this, and the promises are there, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I got to claim all of this stuff that I've been teaching, because right now I'm not too sure about that. Right. Yeah. And so I had to kind of remember that. And so that was kind of where I was at initially.
I can relate to that as well. I remember going up, for prayer for church. Even though I kept going to church every Sunday. I think my relationship with God was probably even the strongest at that point, because I kept praying, like, God heal me, like, and every day I was consistent with my praying, my reading my word, like I was in it, But when I went up for prayer one day, and the pastor, she asked me, what did I want? What was I in need of prayer for? And I was like, oh God, I just keep coming up to you because I need prayer. I need somebody to touch and agree with me, for what I'm believing, my healing. Like, just touch and agree with me that, pray me, help me pray through this. Because sometimes you can't pray for yourself, And so I was like, but this time it hit me differently. And I was like, oh, I don't trust God anymore. And it hit me that when those words came out, it hurt, because I couldn't believe that. I said, like, I don't trust you. But it wasn't like God didn't know I didn't trust him.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, I struggled with trusting him because I had expected one thing to happen because he was sick and then he got better and then he was gone. And so in a matter of 3 months, that wasn't the outcome that I was praying for. So I remember sending you the video of Tony Evans where, you know, when we are expecting or thinking that God owes us something because we had served in a church and that we had did this and we had done all this stuff and we expect that, you know, well, God owes us. And I remember sending you that, and Tony Evans' son speaking for his wife's his mom's service. He said God said to him, "Let me check you. Like, I don't owe you nothing." You know, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah, we ought to come to that realization. So, but God is still in control.
Yeah.
But we become cynical. You know, I know I become cynical.
Right.
Without even realizing it, or maybe realizing it, but we don't care.
Exactly.
You know, I'm going to be cynical, you know, and I remember talking to a friend and he's telling me that he got mad at his wife because she didn't put the visor up in the car, you know, and so, but he also realized that, you know, that's his, you know, his burden for the day.
Right.
And I'm like, well, she's alive, you know, and he realized that too when we were having that conversation. But things like that, where the little things where you're criticizing your spouse for something or they irritate you about something, and then in my mind I'm like, yeah, but they're still alive.
Exactly.
And so and I say that in a cynical way,
Right.
you know, and it's like, you know what, your stuff is petty.
Exactly.
You know, because they're still alive.
Exactly.
And so and that's not a good attitude, but we do it that way.
Exactly. I remember, you know, some married couples, you know, complaining about what their spouse wasn't doing or what they did. And I'm like, I wish that I could pick up Jerry's clothes, you know, like I wish that I could complain that he left clothes on the floor and you're complaining because, you know, your spouse left clothes on the floor or left this on the floor, you know, just things like that. And I'm like, you know, so probably, like you said, it may not have been the best, you know, outlook, but I think we do get cynical.
Yeah.
One of the things we realize is that we have to make the most of today. Like tomorrow isn't promised. That's one thing from this experience that we have learned, is that tomorrow isn't promised. So we only have today. You wake up today, make the best of today.
Yeah. The Bible says in James 4:14 that life is just a vapor. You know, it is here and then it just vanishes away. And so because of that, we do need to make the most of the day. You know, I like to say, you know, try new things, for example.
Right.
You know, how do you live, you know, with what you know? Well, try new things, make the most of today, make the most of our life together, enjoy what we have, you know, learn or make the decision to heal.
And even if you're not with someone, just be grateful. We can always find something to be grateful for.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time.